done now.
Yes, I believe it should be done now. Okay, let me give you an instance. Right from day one, even the Nigerian people, most Nigerian people don't believe that the constitution we have now is from them. They see it as a document transfer from the military regime and to the civilian. And that is why when you say, they say we people of Nigeria, and it's not true. No, that's not the true position as of today. And that's why we don't believe in it. Most people don't believe in it because they see it as there's a lacuna in the constitutions to start with. For example, let's look at recently what happened during the election, like the Kogi state election. You see the problem of when the election was inconclusive. What happened? If you watch, the constitution did not define that, even though I know the constitution section 181 have something like that, but it was not clearly stated. And that was why, if you watch, even the Attorney General cannot make a comment. Those who expected, even the judiciary, the Supreme Court judges, they did not make any statement. So we were in a kind of a bad situation until maybe the parties involved now have to use what you call maybe a political process to decide on which way forward. And that's not right. The Constitution is supposed to have details that when situations like that arises, this we can do A or B. But today is different. That's why you can see it's not even a perfect constitution. I believe, you see, and another thing you know is that naturally, previous government have even been making effort to convey sovereignty, national conference. You understand?
There was the one that just ended.
There's one, and you know the problem is that even the one that was done by the last administration, when the present government came, they just think the whole issue, which is not good for our interest. And whether you
so
like
you think a change in constitution will help solve that?
It will, you see, because it will now bring everybody together. Everybody, I mean, it's not that everybody will come together, but you have a lot of stakeholders, even from the community aspect. Like, for example, now in my constituency, for me to reach the elders, I must go through town hall meeting and get opinions. So we can do this thing gradually and get to, even though people in the House in National Assembly, we know quite well, we are not saying we are taking over their jobs. You understand? But the issue that let's produce a document that most Nigeria believe in, because what we have now, for me, is not a constitution that Nigeria believe in.
Mr. High.
I find it interesting, you know, that he brought about the last constitution, and that we were talking earlier. You talked about the issue of made reference to the former head of state, who was talking about continuity. That, I think, is what we really need, and that's what's lacking. Whatever you do, if you do a constitution today, the next government that comes in would feel the same way. You know, we are so, I mean, I think that the document that we have right now, if you want to say it was done by a neutral party, I mean by the military, question is, are they Nigerians or not? Are they stakeholders or not? Was it entirely by military boys sitting down somewhere and doing it? Of course not. We know that there are interest groups represented from all over. In fact, I do not, as far as I remember, I do not see a group of military people sitting in a corner lording it over the people who are drawing up the Constitution. When this Constitution was being drawn or being drafted, it was a transitional document. You know, it was a document to transit us from the military rule into civil rule. It was, you know, it was something that was done to help the new regime, as it were, to transit and to be able to conduct the business of governance properly. And the people that did it were Nigerians, activists, all sorts of religious leaders, all sorts of interest groups. I recall that the one that was done 1978 to 79 was done, headed by Rotimi Williams. Then it was called 49 Wise Men. You understand what I'm saying? So over the years, wherever there's been a transition, what you find actually is cheap propaganda by people who just want to discredit a document that say was done. They just hang on to the word that says, we the people. We the people is representational. We the people does not mean that you, as Nyota, must be in that assembly. We the people means somebody is representing your interest there. And before you rush to say, no, it's not your interest, remember that in some of these, unlike maybe not the last one, but previous one, when 99 was done, there was a lot of apathy. People were actually voted into it. You had to go back and then, as we voted into the constitution. Yeah, exactly. So I've not seen any other constitution that was drafted like this one, because this one, and I remember there was skepticism at the time. People didn't trust Babangida. They thought, oh, this is, I was the military government at the time. So there was a lot of apathy, And if you don't go in there to represent yourself, of course you'll be represented by fools, quote unquote. I mean, if you want to call the people there, if you say they're not wise enough, then they would represent you. And if they represent you, then obviously you're bound by whatever it is that they have concluded, on your behalf. And so for me, no constitution has been as representative as this particular constitution. And in terms of amendment, I remember, built into it is a process for amendment. Of course, every constitution must have that, because you cannot envisage everything. You cannot, there is no constitution anywhere that is perfect, because there's no way. We're human. We cannot foresee what lies ahead. We cannot begin to see that certain things will evolve. It's only as these things come up that we see a need, certain lacuna come up that we see a need. So, okay, we need to address this, to strengthen the document that binds us all together as a ground law.
So that question of continuity as against overhaul of the Constitution.
Well, you see, why I said overhaul of the Constitution is paramount.
But did you hear what he said about continuity? Each government that comes in wants to do its own thing.
Well, for me, it's, I think it's maybe because our governments, most government officials or people representing us sometimes thrive on sentiment, depending on where you are coming from.
Isn't that a weakness against amendment?
Exactly, that's a weakness.
Is that a weakness against amendment? Against wholesale amendment. Isn't that a weakness against it?
No, it's not. It's not really. See, let me tell you something. Like today, let me consider Lagos State. You discover that every time Lagos State has been crying for an issue of state police, which is needful. Okay, today, police in the federal level, the opportunity to employ more policemen and women, I think for 10,000. That was what they want to employ. But you can see what applied, 1 million. As of today, it's 1 million that applied compared to just 10,000. That's to tell you that there's a need for state police. Let me tell you. Take the example that what happened, the Fulani herdsmen issue that happened just in Enugu. If you have followed the story, the governor of Enugu State got a wing of what is likely to happen. And he called the security agencies for a meeting and told them to prepare. Look at what he has had. Well, maybe because he cannot control the police, talk less the military forces that is there. That's why they did not take him seriously, and the event happened. You understand? So that's the constitution we need is a constitution that can at least give every state the right to have a state police, so that we can man each state effectively. Then the military can always take care of the external forces by the federal level. So you see, a lot of things is lacking in this constitution we are having. Yes, quite well, there's a provision for amendment. But sincerely, I still believe there's this issue that Nigerians, not all, most of us don't trust the present constitution. So I will always advocate we can change it right away, if possible.
Well, I'm just wondering what we have a National Assembly for. You're going to ask me a question, but I just want to say this. Why do we have a National Assembly? That's the only authority, as per the Constitution that we have today, that can make laws or amend laws for us. If you have a problem with the state police, why don't you talk to your representative? Go to the center, sponsor a bill. That's the process for amendment. Sponsor a bill. If you feel strongly about the issue of state police, sponsor a bill. Let it go through the entire process. Let it go through, hearings, if you like, public